Hey everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where we are going to be talking about the problem with the Myers-Briggs type indicator, why it's not classified as scientific, what we can do about it, what we need or should do about it, and how we can make it better. So I'm just going to get straight to the point. There is a problem with the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and the problem is that the Myers-Briggs cannot be used to make long-term predictions about any person's behavior or how they will act or what they will do. So the Myers-Briggs type indicator does not translate well into science. When a person does the MBTI test, they sure get a result. Maybe they get INFJ, maybe INTP, maybe ISTJ. However, if you ask the same person 6 months later to do the same MBTI test, there is a big chance they will answer very differently. What people have found is that people's types and results have a high likelihood of changing from every time we take the Myers-Briggs type test. And most of us can probably recognize this. Most of us who have taken an MBTI test at one point and then at another point with the exact same questions has found themselves answering differently on each retake. So a question here is, okay, is it because people cannot accurately understand themselves? Is it because people are very biased in understanding themselves? Sure, that may be a part of it, but often we are answering very honestly in the situation. People are asking us, how outgoing are we? Or how often do we like to be out, and how much do we like to be outside, and do we like meeting new people? And yeah, in one situation we might feel, no, I do not like meeting new people right now. For I've been kind of in a streak where I've been kind of more by myself, and I kind of prefer that. It's the winter, I tend to read more, I tend to be more by myself, and I'm cool with that. At other points of time, we'll find ourselves answering very extroverted. We'll say, yeah, lately I've been feeling like I just want to go out and meet people and just go to new events, talk to new people, go to new situations. I've been wanting to challenge myself more. So Myers-Briggs is a tool used to predict people's behavior. It's used to make employers find the right candidates for their jobs. It's used to make people find the right career to pursue. So a problem here is, what if you get the MBTI test, you get the INTP result, you go into science, realize science sucks, I don't want to do this, and then you decide, no, maybe I'm better off as an INFP, and then you career change, and then, yeah, it doesn't work. What if you, as an employer, ask your candidates for a job interview to do an MBTI test, and yeah, they fake their answers and they say, I'm extroverted. Sure, I'm very extroverted. I'm perfect for your job, even when they are not. What if people lie? What if people are people genuine? And what if people don't know themselves enough? And yeah, there are plenty of challenges when it comes to the Myers-Briggs type indicator, plenty of things that stand in the way of it being used scientifically. Still, a lot of people use it. It's been here since the 50s. It's used all over the world. It's used by all kinds of companies all over the world. So lots of people out there use a 16 personality type model inspired by Myers-Briggs type indicator. Not all say they use the MBTI, but most people reference it or use some version of it. So it's used in coaching, it's used by career consults, it's used by people at workplaces, it's used for team building, it's used for all sorts of things. And I'm telling you, people are using the Myers-Briggs wrong. My vision for typology is a big shift from trying to categorize behavior, which can change from situation to situation, to trying to capture interests, values, and needs in a person. Because what I've found is that people may have behavior that changes from every day, from every moment, depending on who you're with, depending on what environment you're in, depending on your current situation. But your needs, your values, your feelings, your emotional life, what you're interested in, that tends to remain more or less the same. Yes, you tend to have more or less the same interests from when you're young to when you're older in life. You tend to have more or less the same values from when you're young to when you're old. Sure, there are some changes here and there on the specifics, but the core tends to remain the same. Everyone has a set of primary values or things that they find to be more interesting than other things. So my values are quite clear. I value theorizing, I value philosophy, I value asking questions, I value thinking about life and why we're here. I value building community, connecting with all of you, building relationships with all of you, getting to know you, who you are, how you work. And that's why I'm on YouTube, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And these interests, they have been here since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was still reading books. I was going out, meeting people, discussing ideas. And that's who I was then, and that's who I kind of am today. However, throughout these years, throughout my lifetime, my behavior has changed many times. Sometimes I've been more outgoing, and in some situations I've been more reserved. At some points I have been more to myself, and at some point I've been more interested in other people. At some points I've been more about getting together with others, connecting, building a relationship with others. And at some points I've been more focused on myself, developing my skills and abilities. So my behavior changes all the time, but my values, what I'm trying to do, my goals, my vision has remained more or less the same. So what you see when you take my personality test, when you go into erikthor.com and you click that personality test link in the top menu, what you see is a personality test that asks a set of questions. And it's different from other personality tests. It differs because it asks you about what you enjoy, what you like, what you find interesting, what you find meaningful, what you find positive. It focuses on identifying your interests. So what it does is it asks you questions about what you like and what you dislike, and then you select from strongly disagree to strongly agree, how much you identify with that. So what I found other MBTI tests do, which is very dishonest really, is asking people to choose between two opposite ends. I like meeting people. I like being on my own. What you'll find is a lot of people are a little bit on between. They sometimes like meeting people and sometimes they like being on their own. And so the test kind of struggles with that. It forces you to pick between two scales. And this is statistically dishonest because it kind of pushes the test taker to identify with one thing over the other. Perhaps they will say, yeah, I like art over science, but usually I like having both. Yeah, maybe I like intellectual pursuits over going out and doing sports, but usually I like to have a combination. A lot of these tests are trying to push you into a certain personality type with answers predefined. What I'm doing is I'm not pushing you into anything. You're just picking between strongly disagree and strongly agree. You choose for yourself how much you relate. I'm not forcing you to pick between two things that are not against each other's, that are not always opposed to each other's. I'm just asking you statement by statement, thing by thing, what do you like, what do you dislike? And there you get your result. And these kind of tests, they're a little bit tricky. They're tricky because most tests out there, they will give you perhaps very high and very strange scores. Perhaps it will give you 100% on intuition and 0% on sensing. Carl Jung, he thought such a person would be impossible. Psychologically, that person would be mentally ill. No person is 100% going to favor the imagination over the sensory world. There is no such person out there. You won't find any person like that anywhere. So how can we get such results? How can MBTI tests possibly give us a score of 100% on introversion? Like, do you ever leave the house? The problem with a lot of these tests is that they're giving almost false results. They're pushing you to choose between one or the other, and they're pushing you into a corner that you don't really want to be in. So what tends to happen is a lot of people tend to become resentful of the MBTI very quickly. You take the MBTI test, you're fascinated with the result, you get to the description tells you, oh, you're an awesome person, a lot of people like you, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're a mastermind, you're gifted. Like, they tell you all these nice things to hear, you know, so it's very nice. But as you go and as you hear about other personality types and you meet other people, you start to feel a bit torn because you start seeing other sides of yourself. Well, sometimes I can be like an INTJ mastermind, but sometimes I can actually be quite silly and I just let loose and I'm just myself, you know. And the MBTI has a tendency to make people feel boxed in. So what I came into YouTube doing was I recognized that a lot of people were frustrated with being boxed in. A lot of people don't want to have their behavior classified. You don't want to be told this is who you are because you don't want to feel limited. And so my main issue with typology is that of classifying behavior. I believe when you classify behavior, you're boxing people in, you're giving people a stereotype, you're pushing them into a box. And in this, you're putting people in a situation that they're not very comfortable with. Because people's behavior is constantly changing, people are constantly being different, acting differently, changing all the time. Because people can have multiple sides to themselves, multiple nuances, it is impossible to classify behavior scientifically. It is impossible because you're gonna give them a test, you're gonna give them a type, but then 2 weeks later they're gonna break it. They're gonna break the test, they're gonna break the type, they're gonna give you a different result, they're gonna give you a different behavior, they're gonna show you a different side of themselves, a side you didn't see before. So you're either forced to pretend like these contradictions don't exist and like these boxes are working, which is what some people seem to be doing, or you're gonna have to change your model. And what you should be doing is, instead of trying to classify behavior, is you should be trying to classify flow. What I kind of wanted to do was to develop a flow psychology. So I wanted to see, how are people at their best? What do people like the most? What do people enjoy the most? What are people like when they do what they enjoy? What they do when they do like something? How are people like when they do things that they find meaningful? So what I'm doing is I'm giving people a type, a flow type, and it can be different from their MBTI type. Their MBTI type can tell them you're always very outgoing and you're always very social and people like you, and you're going to say, yeah, sometimes no, sometimes yeah. But my personality test, it's going to give you a different result. It's going to say, yeah, you're a person that is primarily interested in patterns and making connections and reading the rooms, seeing how things connect, making cross-contextualizations. And you're going to be like, yeah, I like those things. Those are some of my favorite things to do. I love puzzles. I love clues. I love riddles. I love seeing hidden things around me. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most. Yeah, actually, when I'm in flow, I tend to do that all the time. That's true. When I'm in flow, I tend to be able to see all kinds of different options and eventualities and what ifs. I'm able to think very tactically. I can see different ways a situation would play out, and I can see which one I think is the best, and I can pick that one, and I can change my behavior and adjust things very subtly, and I can be very tactical. I can. At my best, I'm sharing of myself. I'm talking about who I am, my interests, my likes, my dislikes. I'm open with myself. I'm being myself, being free. Yeah, that's exactly me in flow. That's how you're gonna feel. That's how I want you to feel. That's my goal. So I'm giving you a description that is not gonna make you feel limited, because you're not gonna be afterwards thinking, yeah, but sometimes I'm not doing that. I'm not always reading patterns. Sometimes I get tired or depressed or stressed out, and then I can actually become quite narrow-minded, and I start tunnel visioning on one thing, and I become so caught up in all the chores I have to do at home, and I start focusing on my responsibilities, and I realize I have to take care of my kids, and I have to do this, and I have to be there at that time, so I never have any time to really explore my patterns. And what you're doing here is you're learning to think about personal growth. You're learning to think about what makes you happy and what makes you miserable. So you're starting to finally see one of the biggest, most meaningful possibilities of the MBTI. One of the issues with MBTI is that it has never really been able to explain what the meaning is of itself. Why do I need to understand myself? Well, you need to understand yourself to be able to understand yourself. Often the answer tends to be just that. You need to understand yourself better to know who you are. You need to know who you are to know who you are. it tends to live in these kinds of circular arguments. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give it meaning. I'm trying to turn typology into a question of personal growth instead of just a pursuit of personal understanding. So what you're doing is you're trying to understand what am I at my best? How can I be more at my best? What changes can I do at work? What decisions could I make differently? What friends should I make? How should my environment be different? What should I do on a daily basis to have more fun and to feel better about my life? So looking at the questions, Peter says, do you think there's a link between behavior and cognitive functions? If so, wouldn't it make sense to track that instead of their values? So yeah, the link between behavior and the cognitive functions or the flow functions is this. An introvert intuitive likes having privacy to develop their own thoughts and theories and ideas. So they're going to want, and they're often going to pursue behavior that will put them in a situation where they are on their own, where they can think about things and develop their own unique beliefs and theories about the world. So they're going to choose to be in situations where they can be to themselves. They're going to keep more things to themselves, and they're going to be a little more secretive because they are going to want to let things ruminate inside, and they want to think about things first before they share it with other people. So the link is we do things we enjoy because we enjoy doing it. But there is a problem, and that is that a lot of people are doing things they do not enjoy. A lot of people are doing things that will only make them stressed. I see a lot of introverted intuitives that go too hard on extroverted sensing. And what they are responding to is that pressure, that anxiety of reality. Yeah, I should take time to myself, but in the reality is there are people that need to talk to me, and I need to do work, and I need to be there, and I need to go there, and I need to pay attention, and I need to this and that and that. So we get caught up in musts and things that are far from our primary motivation. And I made a list about like this. So we have a primary, we have a secondary, a tertiary, and an inferior motivation. This sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, this is the cognitive function hierarchy that people love. So when you look at the INFJ, sorry if it is mirrored in a stupid way now. When you look at the INFJ, what you're seeing is, yeah, introverted intuition is a primary function, a primary motivation, something they do because they enjoy it, because it's easy, because it takes no effort at all to do it. It's just good and it's just nice. Then there is a secondary motivation. A secondary motivation, that's something you find meaningful and interesting and stimulating, but challenging, stressful, and perhaps a little bit scary. So we have primary motivations, which we can easily pursue because they require no energy, because they give us energy, because they are enjoyable, because they're nice. We have secondary motivations that we pursue because, well, they are interesting and they're funny and I would like to try it, but I'm a little bit scared to do it. So how we look at a secondary motivation is we look at it as something that requires effort, but that it is fun. Then we have the tertiary motivation, or the third motivation. And the tertiary motivation is something that's easy and takes very little effort, but gives very little reward. So there are lots of things that we do simply because it's easy, because it takes no effort, because we can just do it. It's just as simple as just waving your hand and it's done. And I call this the autopilot function at times, or the lazy function. The lazy motivation. We have a motivation inside ourselves to be lazy, to do things just because it's easy, even if it doesn't give us any value. We have a motivation inside ourselves to do things because it's fun, but also because it's scary and thrilling and exciting, and maybe potentially it could be very worthwhile. And finally, we have an inferior motivation. And some people call that the demon, some people call that the stressor, some people call that, yeah, basically most definitions translate into it's shit. The inferior function we associate with shit. We associate it with things we don't want to do, and things we're putting off to the last minute, and things we would rather avoid, and things that we're thinking about doing but we don't want to do it, but we know we need to do it because we know it's a necessary thing. So we recognize that there are concerns of reality, we recognize that there are concerns of other issues, and we force ourselves to do it. Yeah, the inferior function takes force, where the dominant function is completely effortless. So for the INFJ, the primary motivation is described as traditionally introverted intuition, the secondary motivation, extroverted feeling, the tertiary motivation, introverted thinking, the inferior motivation is extroverted sensing. But to me, an INFJ is not going to be an introverted thinking type. I don't see INFJs as introverted thinking types. I see them at best as lazy introverted thinking types, as types that don't actually enjoy using thinking at all. So when I decide on the INFJ's primary functions, I put 4 primary motivations in there. I say the INFJ has introverted intuition, feeling judging, intuitive judging, and introverted feeling as their 4 primary motivations. So I say the INFJ gets into a state of flow when they can theorize about things, when they can build community, when they can introspect and think about their feelings and their inner emotional life, and when they can work towards a vision or an intellectual goal or pursuit. We have another question here, and that is it possible that certain personality types are more likely to have an autism spectrum disorder? And yeah, I think so. I think a psychological disorder can come about when we struggle to use a cognitive function for issues unrelated to our personality type for the most part. We just can't. When a person simply cannot deal with their inferior function, when they can't bring themselves to deal with chores and stressors and to be on time, when they can't bring themselves to empathize with other people, even if they need to, and even if the situation demands it, even if they know it's the right thing to do, they simply cannot. When a person simply cannot use a cognitive function, then I believe we're talking about some kind of psychological disorder or some kind of issue. And what I'm saying about psychological disorders is a psychological disorder has to be more or less permanent. We can momentarily all find ourselves struggling to do something because it's hard. But if it's throughout our entire life, a struggle that we've had for a very long time, something that blocks us from doing ordinary human things that everybody needs to do, then we're talking about a psychological disorder. So don't be generous about labeling people with psychological disorders. You have to focus on the longer perspective. I hope that answer worked for you. So usually what people are seeing is they are torn between and experience internal conflict between their different primary motivations. So there are a lot of people who experience conflict between different things they all like. For example, an ENFP can feel a torn between, for example, jumping at a new opportunity or making a new connection or getting to understand a new pattern and making a responsible decision and living in tune with their ethics and following and honoring what they've said and what they know is right. So what the ENFPs can experience here is a conflict between honesty and freedom. So they can experience a conflict between ethics and freedom in the sense that they are torn between what their ethics tell them is right and what their desire for freedom urges them to do. So what I've been doing is I've been developing a system of subtypes, and the subtypes are not contradictions to their original type. All ENFPs are ENFPs, even the subtypes. All of them have these 4 primary motivations. But a subtype is an ENFP that has developed a focus on one of these motivations over the other. So an ENFP that systematically puts their need for freedom above their ethics, so that does things that they know are unethical just because they need freedom and just because they feel choked or pushed or cornered by other people. So what you're going to notice is when you're dealing with an ENFP is don't corner them, don't take away their freedom, because there is a big chance they're going to lash out and do something that they know is unethical or bad. What you're going to notice is other ENFPs are systematically going to choose their ethics over their freedom. So what you're going to see is these ENFPs, they are constantly setting their own intuitive desires aside, and they have things they want to do and there are things they're super interested in, but they never take the time to explore them because they feel so blocked or limited by their ethics. Their ethics keep telling them, no, I shouldn't want that, I shouldn't go for that, I shouldn't do that because I know it's not right, or because I feel in my heart that it's not a good thing to do. So here we talk about internal conflicts. Everybody has them. Everybody deals with them. So what I want to be doing is I want to be developing videos describing these internal conflicts and how we can find balance. Because of course, what we're looking for is finding balance, reforming our ethics to make sure our ethics give ourselves room for freedom, reforming our need for freedom and making sure that we take time for our need for freedom in an honest and ethical manner, making sure that we explore opportunities that we consider ethical, making sure that we don't put one value above the other. So I asked the community, what do you think is the most important thing for typology right now? And 32% of you said science, neuroscience, statistics, and data. That's with 33 people voting, that's more than 100 people saying, yeah, this is the biggest priority. It was the biggest winner of all options I asked. I asked if you want personal growth advice, if you want to get more understanding of others and of your problems and your struggles, or if you want to get better relationship advice so you can interact better with other personality types. I asked if you wanted more critical thinking and challenging of stereotypes. And I asked if you wanted more fresh, original, and new perspectives to break the status quo. And most of you selected science. So I decided to make this video to help you understand the scientific challenge that we are faced with and what we're trying to do and what we need to do. And also how I'm trying to solve it and how I'm trying to work with it to make it better. And I believe the most important thing we can do is just provide more meaningful and accurate definitions. Definitions that work and hold up. Definitions we can keep testing over and over to be the case. Statistically honest personality tests. And let me tell you, there are some trends in psychology I don't agree with. For example, a lot of people are critical of self-assessment. I'm not. I believe self-assessment is very important because of the respect it implies on the person to decide for themselves who they are, what they like, what they dislike. We must not get into the habit of labeling other people and putting types on them that they do not personally understand or agree with. We need to get other people to agree with our reasoning. We need to get other people to see our point of view. And we need to give people the choice for themselves to choose what they like and what they enjoy and what they want to do. I believe self-assessment is important because no person can know you better than you know yourself. And I see too many people that type themselves purely based on what other people think. Other people tend to say I'm so chatty and social, so I have to say I'm chatty and social. And I tell you, no, you don't. You can make decisions based on what you feel is right, because based on what you feel is important. I tell you, you need to understand yourself why you are the personality type you are. Otherwise, there is no point. Otherwise, we once again fall into stereotyping and labeling and boxing people in to things they do not identify or like. And I tell you, I don't think we necessarily need neuroscience or genetic research to use scientific typology in a scientific or accurate or meaningful way. I decided the biggest and most important thing I could do was to go and meet the community and go talk to people, you and all, and to get to know you all and to discuss this with you because by doing so, I could help people understand themselves better. I could already make some kind of impact. I could already help you understand yourself, your life, your struggles, and how to deal with them better. And so I came to understand that it was more important for me that I helped other people than that I provided scientific awareness or studies to back up what I said. The most important thing for me was, did what I say help other people? Did this video make a difference? Did other people feel better after watching this? Did other people understand themselves better? Did other people learn something? Because that became more important to me. So what I can do is I cannot necessarily give you all scientific backing. I can't get Harvard behind me. I can't get any bigger institution to say this is right. But you have a voice and you can make the world a better place and you can make the Myers-Briggs type indicator more scientific. So what I encourage you to do is take all the definitions that I've introduced you to and go and make studies of your own. Go and make personality tests. Go and do research on your friends and family. Do pilot studies. Get a group of 100 people together. See how they interact. Make notes. Take lessons. I say, go and read psychology and study how psychological disorders and the MBTI can be connected, how we can understand things in a more practical and meaningful manner. Because what I found is that Myers-Briggs is horribly disconnected from psychology. There is so much interesting research done on narcissism, on autism, on ADHD, and all kinds of different psychological issues. But there is almost no connection to the MBTI. Perhaps there should be. Perhaps we should be trying to understand ourselves not just typologically, but also psychologically. I'm going to wrap up the stream. Just going to read through your comments once again. Yeah, typology and the MTI Foundation are not one and the same, thank God. No, yeah, there are hundreds of different studies going on, hundreds of different projects and research ideas, and there's socionics, there's JCF, which is basically just using Young's cognitive function descriptions to type people. There is BB, it's Dario Nardi, there's Linda Behrens, there are so many different thinkers and innovators within the Myers-Briggs field. There's a lot of positive changes happening. And I see us breaking out of the stagnation and status quo. And I'll tell you, I've been bothered with that status quo for a long time. I've been bothered by how people keep falling back on the same stereotypes, the same struggles, and they just keep repeating the same thing over and over without anything to back it up, without any claims to verify it. They just keep sharing the same personality tests and articles that keep spreading the same bullshit over and over with no critical thinking, with no actual discussion. Does this work? Is this definition reasonable? Can we actually type people that way? Does this test actually work? We're just spreading it because perhaps it looks nice, perhaps it was written with a nice witty tone, perhaps it was easy. And yeah, like I told you, a lot of people are inclined to do things because they are easy, not because they are right. And yeah, that's a problem. Thanks everybody for joining up. Thanks Gonzo, Peter, Dustin, Ken. Glad to have you here at 2:32 a.m. But man, go get some sleep. Thanks, Emil and Yen and that. Yeah. Let me tell you, if you want to help me or support me in what I'm doing, go to visit my patreon.com and leave a short donation. Even $2 helps and makes me feel like I have support and that people back me up. And feel free to like this video, share it with other people, and get the discussion started. Get people changing their minds, get people thinking about this differently. Remember, type people based on their values, not based on their behavior. Force yourself to ask yourself questions about their true intentions and motivations, not what they are doing in the moment. That's the next generation of psychology for you. Thanks everybody for joining, and I hope to see you all in the next video.